Hello and welcome to the President's Podcast right here on the record with the Ohio Senate. The views the news excludes. I'm John Fortney, the Director of Communication with the Senate Republican Caucus, that is the majority caucus in the Ohio Senate. Great to have on the program this week State Senator Jane Timken, Republican from Canton, Ohio, and Senator Andrew Brenner, Republican from Delaware County, Ohio, and the city of Delaware. Big governor's news conference this week that both of you attended regarding your bill, Senate Bill 158, unplugging kids from this right here, their cell phone, their smartphone. Tell me where you got the idea for this and why it's so important, and it's very well received for the governor to have a news conference on it.
Sure. We have been hearing so much about the harmful effects of social media use by children, teenagers, and the harm it does these students. As you know, in the state of Ohio, we passed a bill that required all these school districts in the state to have a policy regarding cell phone usage. As the governor stated yesterday, those that have implemented an instructional day prohibition on cell phone use in the schools, they've seen dramatic effects of children interaction, concentration levels, performance levels. It is working in these schools, so it's time to, as I like to say, unplug our students so they can be plugged into a brighter future.
Chairman Brenner, you're the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and this is something that the governor talked about during his State of the State address. It seems like certain districts don't want to always just be on the front line and say, we're going to ban phones, but there seems to be a collective, a voice from the districts that says, we would like the legislature to go ahead and take this step because it really would be beneficial in the classroom.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen obviously bullying and harassment, chronic absenteeism. They've been rising over the years, and I think most of that, or a large chunk of that, can be attributed to the use of cell phones in the classroom and kids having basically 24/7 access to other students who are bullying them and or sending messages, and then things that are distracting them from what's going on in the classrooms. And I think that's why we've seen a major decline in student test scores and performance. We've spoken to many schools, especially schools that, charter schools, charter non-public schools that have had no cell phone use in the classroom over this last several years, and they have performed far better than the schools that had allowed use of cell phones in the classroom. So I think this is a very positive step. The governor is taking the lead, not just this year, but a year ago in the State of the State address when he asked it at that time, and we modified House Bill 250 that put in basically the basic policies to start it off with.
The governor said during the news conference, by the way, you can see a special breakout interview that we did with Senator Timken and Senator Brenner, along with highlights from the governor's news conference on ohiosenate.gov. Just go to OTR on the record. So you go to ohiosenate.gov, you click on news, we're the very first drop down, and you can also go to Ohio Senate GOP and find those videos under our newsroom playlist. The governor during the news conference, Senator Timken, said constant notifications make it almost impossible for students to focus. And you had really a startling statistic about how many notifications they get an hour, much less a day.
They're getting at least 11 notifications an hour. That adds up to 192 notifications during their waking hours. So kids are constantly distracted. They're constantly looking at their phones. They're constantly wondering, what am I missing? Who posted something about me? What are they saying about me? And it is, these apps are designed to constantly take their attention, and they become addicted to this. And so I like to think, here's a teacher trying to teach photosynthesis, a kind of complicated chemical interaction that every student learns in biology, and they're constantly looking at Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, all of them, right? And that once the development of these social media apps and the cell phones came into our country in the, let's say, 2010s, we saw a dramatic increase in anxiety, depression, self-harm, especially in girls, which concerns me greatly. We have seen our children have more connections to technology than to other human beings. And that is not conducive to positive human development and also positive learning.
Living inside the matrix is not exactly living inside reality, but there is a true danger, a true threat. You talked about that, Senator Brenner, during the governor's news conference about Senate Bill 158 and about Braden's Law and about how a young man from Dublin Central High School felt that based on what had happened online, that he wanted to end his life.
Absolutely. He was basically blackmailed, and I was like, not even a half an hour later, he committed suicide. And this was somebody else that did it. But the fact that he was on, the phone, he was on social media, as are many kids that have committed suicide, or have harmed themselves, or have gone into deep chronic depression because of the use of these phones, and just the abuse, and the fact that you've got outsiders that have also taken advantage of our kids. That shouldn't be happening during the school day. It shouldn't be happening, period, but shouldn't be happening during the school day when kids are trying to learn and trying to, learn how to not only think, but learn the basics. Many kids today can't even do basic reading, writing, and arithmetic because they're distracted, I think, by these phones significantly and by all the social interactions that they're doing on them as opposed to learning. And if you can't do the basics, you're going to end up failing in school. And I think that's why we have seen a dramatic fall off in the test scores throughout the state. And again, I mentioned that, this isn't just in Ohio. This is happening all over the United States. So if you take a look at NAEP scores from across the nation, you'll see that they've all fallen. And I think that there's a direct correlation between that and the heavy use of social media and cell phones.
We were talking during the interview, and 40 years ago when I was in high school, if it was a bullying situation, there was a little dust up between you and the other guy or whatever, it was basically over at the end of the school day or even over at the end of the week. But now it never ends because you take it home with you. It's online. It's on the apps. That's a real danger, isn't it? That's a threat to our kids.
It is a threat. If you think about it, that just the constant emotional drain, the constant having to deal with that, you get distracted from literally every other aspect in your life. And it actually takes away from, correct emotional attachments to family and friends and reduces those interactions. And the governor is correct. I think this is going to be something that will bring kids back together. They'll start acting like kids and have better social interactions, and I think it will improve their emotional well-being as well.
This week during Senate session, Senate Bill 7 passed unanimously, 33-0, and it basically instructs school districts around Ohio for public schools and public non-chartered schools, is that correct? Or public chartered schools?
Public charter schools.
Public chartered schools, that they will have a K through 12 substance abuse program through all 12 grades. But there was also another part of that. There was an amendment taken, and that addressed school bullying as well, did it not?
Correct. It addressed specifically bullying and hazing as being a requirement now to have instruction on that of age appropriate in our schools. And it still leaves the flexibility for the schools, as it would be under that section of code, to be able to, give it out the way that was most flexible and needed for each and every individual school building in the districts throughout the state. But what it does is it puts it front and center. And I've seen this happen in other bills in the past where we have taken something such as structured literacy that the governor put in the budget 2 years ago, and we're now seeing major improvement in results there. I think by, trying to now show kids not only is, the use of the cell phones and overuse of that a problem, but just bullying and hazing in general should not be tolerated. And it's something that I think the schools, once they start getting those messages through to the kids, I think it will improve, even in classroom interactions with students.
This really works hand in hand with Senate Bill 158 in a great way. Because bullying on this, is something that only exacerbates the problem, or maybe in many ways are really worse.
Oh, correct. And I think it's important to have these discussions at a young age about bullying and hazing, and I'm sure bullying has existed since the
Sure.
dinosaur days of my grade school, but I think it's really important to have this pairing of understanding the harmful effects of bullying in a classroom, and then also not having that access to the cell phone where they can exacerbate the bullying, they can continue that bullying that goes on a constant basis by use of cell phone.
What's your message to parents who maybe, are very concerned about the health and welfare and the education of their children? What do you want to reassure them about? Because I know there is an exception within this about maybe addressing, well, how do I reach my child if I need to reach them? What's your message to parents?
Sure. I think every parent cares about their child, and they want their child to grow up happy and healthy and learn in school. And I understand the concerns about needing to contact your child, but the way you can call the school. I also understand that there were issues raised about potential school shootings. You heard from Superintendent Marchhausen that actually the school resource officers don't want their children on their cell phones during a school emergency. They want them listening to their teachers, to their safety officers, because that's the fastest way to get them to safety. They don't want parents rushing to the school because their children have called them, because the parents themselves could be in danger, and prohibit emergency services from getting to the schools. So I understand the parents' concerns. There are exceptions in this bill that if there's IEPs or others that require cell phones, that exception exists. I think that parents want, and they recognize even that they can't get their child to look up and look them in the eye when they're talking to them.
Don't you see that almost at every restaurant that you go to? A young couple or old couple, and this is what they do the whole time. They're not talking to each other. Have you seen that before? I mean, that's how distracting this is. That we can't even communicate with each other in a one-on-one dinner type of environment, much less what that does to the instructional day at school.
And we're also hearing from employers and how the generational difference is existing. The kids and young adults that are getting hired today do not have the communication skills. And in any job, you need to be able to communicate properly. It doesn't matter what that job is. I actually had a conversation with someone who is in music production, and he said, I don't know what's going on with this generation, but they can't figure it out. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to relate to other people in the job. And this is in large part because of that, the world of technology has taken over their lives.
Superintendent Marchhausen from the Dublin City School System, who was part of the governor's news conference, I thought you referenced what he was talking about, and I thought that this really resonated, at least with me. He was talking about businesses telling him that they want to see and show that there is an importance of being successful without the device in your hands. All about being able to just have a talk with somebody, being able to communicate, well, this is how we fix this, or this is how we troubleshoot this problem. And even in today's world of AI and technology, you still have to be able to have one-on-one conversations with people.
Absolutely. In fact, I believe Jamie Dimon just this week, he's come out recently with several interesting comments, and the one that he came out with this week was to end the conversations in business meetings. He said, and he said people are constantly texting, they're constantly doing other things as opposed to paying attention to the business meeting and the people around them. He's wanting to see that come to an end as well, and have people put the phones down even in business meetings. So I think this is something that is now, people are realizing it is taking away too much from the interactions that are needed between people.
I had a laugh too on the similar situation. Jeff Bezos, who started Amazon, of course, out of his garage, which is a gigantic tech AI-driven company, said a lot of the new executives that come into culture shock because they don't allow PowerPoints, and people have to put their phones down, and it's all on a piece of paper, and they actually talk to each other within the boardroom, which I thought was remarkable to hear him actually identify that having this do all the work for you is really detrimental. It doesn't add to performance. It actually takes away because we're so reliant on what this thing says, and sometimes it's wrong. AI can often be wrong. Tina Husted, who was there at the governor's news conference, of course, wife of U.S. Senator John Husted, former second lady of Ohio, she talked about that 12-year study that was done about smartphone use, and it showed that excessive use was linked to multiple mental health issues for children. I guess we shouldn't be shocked by that, but the studies, the statistics really are something that you can't debate and say, well, that didn't happen. That's not true. It is true. Over 12 years, the facts stand.
Right. And in large part because these social media apps and the distractions have rewired their brains. And I think that the levels of anxiety have shot through the roof because they are not, there's a term, they're not in discover mode, they're almost in fear mode constantly because of the way they interact with social media. And so their brains can't turn off the fear, and that leads to, and they can't handle and process this in a way that's healthy so that they can live in a more positive viewpoint.
Yeah, this is almost like it's either flight, I want to run away from it, or run away from what's being posted or said about me, or I want to fight about it. I mean, that's what's happening. And as we look at just the overall aspect of this bill, would you say so far, because you'll have hearings on it obviously, has it been really well received, do you think, by school systems? I mean, because I was talking about that at the start of the podcast, but do you think school systems are sort of saying, we kind of like to see you get rid of cell phones during the instructional day?
I would say that the school systems and superintendents were hoping we would do this maybe sooner. They don't want to be the bad guys. They, I believe, want this to happen. I think worst case, they'll blame us for doing it, but the fact is, I think that you want to see students perform better. You want to see the anxiety go away. You want to see the depression. You want to see the bullying and hazing go away. I think this is a way to substantially reduce it and actually return children back to learning the basics.
I agree. I mean, look, this is about our children's future. If we in the legislature can do things that can improve their lives, that they do have a better future and they can thrive, I'm happy to do it.
You know, I heard somebody say this, and this was back when I was still working in media and working with a lot of the younger generation right out of college, and they were very savvy with these and very savvy on the desktop new digital editing systems, but they were great users of technology. What they were very poor at doing, they were not problem solvers. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, problem solving is all about being able to communicate and not get frustrated because it can't be done immediately at your fingertips. Being able to work out a problem with your teammates or your newsroom or whomever you are in the manufacturing, whatever your team is in the manufacturing area. Is that something about having communication skills are problem-solving skills?
Correct. Well, and children learn a lot of these on the playground and not with their phone. Think, for example, taking turns on the swing set, or learning how to play a game of kickball. Who's going to go first? Who's going to get picked? How you resolve whether someone was out. That kind of interaction does not take place on a cell phone. And what takes place on a cell phone is I post something, I'm constantly looking, did they like what I said? Do they not like what I said? Who's commenting on me? And it's this constant bombardment, but exactly no problem solving and no evolution of human development.
And if you're using the cell phones constantly, and actually AI is improving substantially, kids don't learn how to think. They don't know how to use logic, reasoning. All those things go by the wayside because then they're completely dependent on the cell phone to give them all the answers that they need. And unfortunately, we see them, and we've always seen over the years where they have these reporter joke things where they'll go to the beach and talk and interview with young people and ask them basic questions about the country or basic questions that everybody should know, and these kids are completely clueless. And unfortunately, I think that's where a lot of kids are going because they're so reliant on the cell phones. They're not actually learning facts. They're not learning things that they should have done over the course of their learning in school from K to 12. And since kids are getting these cell phones as early as kindergarten or even before then, they are completely just tuned into the phone, and they're tuning out the rest of their the children that are on the playground.
Yeah, I only have a bachelor's degree, but I look back at my time in libraries all the way through elementary and high school and college, and actually going to the card catalog and getting the encyclopedias, checking the books out, doing the work, where right now, a lot of kids, this does the work. So, Senate Bill 158 hearing starting up soon, I would assume.
Already had the first hearing and had proponent testimony. We're going to have additional testimony when we come back from Easter break. I suspect this is a bill that will move quickly, and I believe there will be very little opposition to it.
Senator Timken, final thought.
I thank Senator Brenner for his work on this issue, and I applaud Governor DeWine for his leadership on this issue. And I like to say, let's unplug our kids so they can plug into a brighter future.
I agree. Senator Timken, Senator Brenner, this is the phone. Usually that's what I want to do with it, especially on my days off where I am not reachable. Go and enjoy the day. Absolutely. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.